Liars are very good at pressuring you to lie for them, and they've got a great story for everything. And he's talking about buying me a steak dinner and yada, 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 and how he can't lose this job. Selling your car is difficult. I say this as a car salesman, but what I really mean is selling a car on your own is difficult. And I'm not trying to like toot my own horn or say that everybody should like hire me to sell their car or whatever, but from personal experience, I sell cars for a living. But every time I list a car that I own personally on Marketplace or Craigslist or wherever I put it to sell it personally, and most of these stories come from before the Bring a Trailer era or some good clearinghouse like that. But every time I list it, I am baffled at really just humanity in general. That people have the gall to say certain things, to make certain offers, and there's a definitive filter that I think people don't approach car dealers typically with this nonsense. Crazies come out of the woodworks for private seller listings, I think, because they think they can take more advantage of the situation. So a few times in the past, when I've listed my own personal cars for sale, I typically ended up just becoming so frustrated that I would sell them to another dealer. And as much as I didn't like leaving money on the table, I'm like, this isn't worth it. Whatever $500 or $2,000 I might get more for my car is not worth my time as much as I'd like it to be. It's too much pain. So the first one was I had a 2005 Subaru Legacy GT wagon, which I loved. I took that thing everywhere. I've made so many stories with that. I mean, there's a whole nother rabbit trail of stories with that one, from trying to drive it up a mountain and getting the cops called on me by my family because they didn't know that it was me. And like my grandfather, it was his mountain. Racing it, the quarter-mile circle track, parking lot drags, long before Cletus McFarland was, gosh darn it, he probably wasn't even old enough to have a driver's license at that time, but dominating everybody there. Anyway, had a lot of fun with that Subaru, but time came to sell it. And I got so sick of dealing with people that this dealer, this wholesale buyer for a dealer, wanted to buy it. And I'm like, you know what? Fine. I don't care. Fine. Just come buy it. He was willing to give me close to asking price, which I thought was kind of odd. So he comes out to pick it up, and I had a loan on it at the time. The dealer would pay it off, and they're going to give me a check for the difference. Let's say he offered me $14 for the car. So he comes out and brings me a sales order that I agree to sell it to the dealership, and the number on the sales order was like 14.5 or something like that. I was like, okay, that's kind of odd. I don't know why the number's different. He's like, oh, don't worry about that. We'll get it corrected or whatnot. I was like, I don't really care. As long as you're buying my car, I'm getting the number I want. So it's not like you came out and renegotiated the deal with me. You just have a higher number on the agreement to the dealership. So I didn't think too much about it. I probably would nowadays. This was before I started realizing that everybody's always playing chess in the car business, and that there might be a reason for that, not just an honest mistake. A couple weeks later, somebody from the car dealership calls me and asks me to verify how much I sold the car to them for, because there was obviously a discrepancy with how much cash went out and what was on the sales invoice, et cetera, et cetera. And I realized pretty quickly that he had padded the difference for himself. He had built in his own buyer's commission. And I was like, golly, I'm not going to lie for anyone. I don't remember what I ended up telling them. I think I either just told them the number, or I just said, look at your sales invoice. I'm not getting in the middle of this, because it was not worth it for me. But then he called me and tried to pressure me into it, because he's all trying to, liars are very good at pressuring you to lie for them, and they've got a great story for everything. And he's talking about buying me a steak dinner and yada, 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 and how he can't lose this job and everything. And I'm just like, listen, man, I'm not going to out you because I'm not going to be a narc, but I'm also not going to lie for you. And a steak dinner is not going to change my mind. This is absolutely not worth it for me. Even as broke as I was at that point, my integrity was not for sale, at least not for a steak dinner. That was one of them, but probably the hardest one ever was trying to sell my Ford Super Duty. And it was a fantastic truck. It was kind of an oddball spec. It was a rear wheel drive dually 350 6 liter, the dreaded 6 liter in a manual transmission. And I bought it in Ohio, but it was a Southern Ohio truck, so it was no rust and it was just incredibly clean. And I used it to haul my trailer back and forth from Vegas, and it never really saw any hard duty. It was a single lightweight Trail X trailer. It was like it wasn't even back there. It was total overkill, but it was a good truck for me for quite a while. But the time came to sell it. And it was the most difficult thing in the world to sell because one, I couldn't sell it in Ohio because it was rear wheel drive, totally sale proof. So had it out in Vegas. So I had it for sale there. And I sold it probably 6 different times. And every time people would back out, well, I'm not sure about the 6 liter. Have you had the head studs done? No, I haven't, but it's only got like 75,000 miles and it hasn't seen hard duty. And I've changed the oil regularly and I let it warm up and all these things like that would prevent the failure. I'm like, just upgrade the head studs and do the head gasket and you'll be fine. So finally, some older couple came along and they were ready to buy it and they were going to take it to Texas or whatever and use it. And they agreed to buy it. And then I didn't hear from them for a couple of days. And I'm like, darn it, they found the internet. And sure enough, they called back and, oh, I don't know about this 6 liter. It's got some problems. I'm like, well, some of them do, but this one doesn't. And it's a very easy fix. So at the time I was moving back from Vegas to Ohio. My business there had not gone so well. So I had a warehouse that I was renting in Vegas and the truck was just parked outside of it. Why it wasn't parked inside, I don't know, but whatever. It was locked. So I had the truck for sale for quite a while for like 12 grand. Couldn't get rid of it. And then I get a call that my truck's been stolen. And I was like, all right, sweet. And the insurance adjuster called me up and said, all right, well, probably value the truck at $15,000 and, real sorry that you got it stolen. And I'm trying my best to sound disappointed, but my excitement at the prospect of getting 15 grand for a truck that I was trying to sell for 12 grand was not easily hid from her. And she's like, you don't sound too upset about your truck being stolen. I'm like, oh, no, no, it's real terrible. I definitely didn't commit insurance fraud. Like, don't suspect that because I didn't. But I'm like, I feel like that's where she's going with this. There was a 30-day rule that it had to be stolen for 30 days before they would pay out on insurance. And everybody I talked to said, dude, that truck is in Mexico. It's in parts or whatever. Like, people want those trucks down there. It is gone. No problem at all. Well, turns out the guy was hiding in plain sight and he was just driving it around Vegas just to drive it around. And the cops didn't pick it up because they had a lot of better things to do, like real crime in Vegas. But the wreckers were just trolling around looking for business. I mean, this was 2010-ish, so pretty much every business was in the dumps and Vegas got hit extremely hard. So the tow trucks would just drive around looking for whatever. And because my truck was in Vegas but registered in Ohio, I had not renewed the registration, so it had expired tags. So, of course, the wreckers picked it up. It was parked on the street with expired tags, not to mention a busted out rear window, and they put it in their impound lot. And everything's electronic, so they share the plate numbers and VIN numbers with the police, and so it got a hit, I think, 3 days before the 30-day window for me to get paid out. So they go pick up the truck. I'm cursing myself, 1, for leaving it parked outside, 2, for not renewing the registration, because then the guy would have been driving around on a totally legal stolen plate, but not expired, and it wouldn't have gotten recovered, and he could have kept owning a truck, and I would have got paid 15 grand. They recovered it, so now I had to pay for the damage and new ignition lock and deal with that crap, and I got a small insurance settlement, but I had to start over from scratch to sell my truck again. So after all the pain of trying to get rid of it, I finally worked out a deal with this dealer who I knew in Vegas, and they had a Mercedes CLK 63 Black Series, which is one of my favorite cars on the planet. Ironically, another car that has head stud issues. A little more expensive to fix on that one. But yeah, I had wide body DTM inspired street car with a 6.3 liter naturally aspirated engine. Will do frickin' burnouts all day long, even if you don't want to. So they had one in their inventory that they were trying to get rid of. And for some reason, they wanted my truck on trade. And I was like, okay, well, what's the deal look like? And I think they were going to sell the Black Series to me for like 65 grand and take my truck for 12. And I was like, this is an amazing deal because I can turn around and retail that Black Series for 70 and you get me out of my truck. And I like kind of kept asking him because this was a friend of mine. I'm like, are you sure about this deal? And he's like, yeah, no, we'll do great with that truck. And I'm like, okay. So I took the deal, got out of it, didn't have to deal with the annoying retail buyers that would send me lowball offers and scam artists and all the ridiculous stuff. And I think I haven't gone and calculated it. I really should before I told the story. But that car, I made like $5,000 on it the first time. And I think I got a trade. And then I got the car back in on trade. I think I ended up selling that CLK Black Series 3 different times. So effectively turned that truck that I couldn't sell for $12,000 into like 25 or 30 grand effective in my pocket. So kind of crappy situation or difficult situation turned out working out amazingly well. But ironically, it was because I sold it to a dealer, not because I sold it privately. And I mean, the stories go on and on about the abusive messages that I've gotten and ridiculous offers, and we've all seen them. Anyone that has sold anything on Craigslist or Marketplace has dealt with the scum of society. At least that's how people come across when it's somewhat anonymized through the internet. So I don't need to recount those. We've all had them, but there's been some real doozies. But still to this day, when customers call me up and say, oh, well, I'll just sell my car on my own, I don't need your help, I'm like, you know what? You do that. Let me know how it goes for you and call me back in a month when you're tired of dealing with people, and we'll do it for you.
When you get a ticket, it might look something like this, but the first thing that you need to do is take a picture of that ticket and send it to 305-305. That will get the ticket clinic on your case immediately. They've got brick and mortar offices in Georgia, Florida, and California, but they can help you find a ticket no matter where you get it in the United States by helping you find a local attorney that will do everything they can to help you avoid costly fines, insurance premium increases, points on your license, risk of suspension, even jail time. They've helped me out with this ticket and many others, and a lot of my friends as well. So check them out now at the link in the description below, or again, text your ticket to 305-305 to get the ticket clinic on your case. They are the perfect partner in your fight against any speeding ticket.